Tell us where we're at right now.
We're at Thousand Trail Soledad Canyon in Acton, California. Kind of in the middle of nowhere between LA and Lancaster and Palmdale. Before here, we were in Anza Borrego Desert for about 4 weeks, and after that, we went to Slab City. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's the last free place on Earth. It was fabulous. It's an abandoned military base. And then it went defunct, and nobody ever did anything with the land. And people have started squatting there. And it's just all these like old RVs, and they start building things around them. But there's internet, there's a solar guy, there's a really, really cool place called The Range, which is sort of an outdoor bar club, and they just have bands play there. They can play 5 songs and then the next band comes on. But while they're waiting to play, they keep getting drunker or higher. So by like 11 o'clock at night, it's just a mess. They don't know the lyrics, they don't know the words, they don't know anything. That really reminded me of the old Clubhouse, but sort of the outdoor version of it.
That same old place. Sweet home, Chicago, yeah.
Before I came to downtown LA, I ran away from San Diego, moved to Connecticut. I wanted to really focus on my art. I figured the one city I disliked so much that it would make me just work and do nothing else was LA. Everyone's like, oh, don't go to downtown. You're going to get killed. You're going to get murdered. It's so unsafe. And oddly enough, the minute I got to downtown LA, I knew that's my home, like in my soul. That was 1993, and I remember driving by the American Hotel, and I'd seen it in the paper advertised that they had rooms for rent. I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to go. I didn't wind up at the American. I was at the 900 building on First and Vignes, talking to the manager there, and I'm filling out the application. He's looking at it, and he's like, do you get high? Do you smoke pot? If you do, don't smoke with the guys in 111, because that shit is strong. So guess who the first people I met were the guys in 111. I didn't smoke any pot with them, though. The second night I was there, they took me down to the Clubhouse. The Clubhouse was run by Alberto. It was open after hours. It was open all the time. I used to go out in Hollywood and come back and go to the Clubhouse until I learned I didn't need to bother going to Hollywood. You walk in and it was just filled with stuff. The walls were just things upon things about found objects and sculptures and art, and everything just sort of started building on top of each other. There was a little stage, bands played, the beers were $1. You could bring your own bottle of liquor and sort of contribute. Joel Bloom was behind the bar. He'd be making lists of what we need at the general store. Well, we need toilet paper and shampoo, and kind of like everyone was just going to settle down and live there and have all their needs met. I had my first real validation as an artist at the Clubhouse. I was there, and Richard Godfrey asked to talk to me and just sat down completely serious. And Richard isn't always completely serious, and really told me he enjoyed my art and respected my work. It really made a difference that somebody that was such a fabulous artist would actually be telling me this. Gave me such a boost of confidence. That was one of my memories of the Clubhouse. And there's a lot of times when I don't have memories of the Clubhouse. It was just an amazing, surreal, hidden, abstract version of Cheers. You always knew everybody, but it definitely wasn't Cheers. You would have Alberto putting a chain around his neck, going outside with a bat and going, come on, the party's right here, and swinging it because he was pissed. So it went from that to having these really amazing intellectual conversations. Everybody in the rest of my life that I'd met up to this point was like really uptight or just had these value systems that I didn't agree with, and went to the Clubhouse. Everyone was like so accepting. Whoever you were, whatever you did, it didn't matter. You were there, you were part of the community. Because you were part of the community, you were accepted, no matter what you did. And we know some people did some weird stuff. When I first moved to LA, I had my degree in painting, and I was just starting to learn how to weld. And I taught myself, and it just slowly transitioned from being downtown. There were so many people building stuff. There were so many metal artists and people doing stuff with scraps of metal. And Alberto sticking cars up on walls. When Alberto made his flaming espresso rod, that was a giant truck that shot flames out the back and also made really fancy, nice espresso coffee on the top. You know, that really showed me that you can do anything. It really helped me transition from painting to sculpture. And that really led to a sense of freedom, which allowed me to like be more creative, allowed me to be more self-expressed in my art. All of that really comes together in a place where you're that accepted that you can be that completely free. When I started out welding, I was doing some shows with my fine art and trying to make a living doing my functional art. When I first moved to the brewery, my company was called Angry Chair, and everything I did was dangerous. You know, if you fell on it, you're just dead because it was just pointy and sharp. I used to do larger pieces to the point of I'd weld it and finish it and then not be able to move it. My poor neighbors all had to come and move it for me. I slowly transitioned, and as I changed, my artwork reflected that in softening up and being more accessible. Ted Meyer asked me to make an urn for his cat, Stephen. And he had 2 cats named Stephen. So I made an urn for his cat, and I combined my fine art sculpture work with making cremation urns, which also offered me the opportunity to be in service to others, help people go through grief and loss. So it's a really interesting progression of watching the art change and the self change at the same time and see what happens. First time I walked into Al's, I remember Cliff at the door. Big, beautiful Cliff. He carded me. Second thing I remember was it was loud. It was really loud. The third thing I remember is people getting naked or grinding on themselves or doing something on stage. I don't know what it was, but it was always nutty. Fourth thing I remember, Stacy, the bartender, saying, "Welcome to the hood." It was totally like your living room, your very, very loud living room. You know, it was really cool to have your local bar also be this really cool music venue. God, there was just some amazing bands and music. And at the same time, you're just at your neighborhood bar. I had a friend who played at Al's bar. I guess he would play all the time, get really drunk and naked. You'd think I would have noticed that, but in the middle of everything else going on, it's like, yeah, I don't remember you naked and drunk on stage, writhing on the floor. No, didn't notice. Al's bar had the back patio. So if you were sitting in the back, you could look up, and one night, Michael Gonzalez came out up there completely naked and covered in soap suds and did this crazy dance and then went back in. So that was one experience on the patio. The other one I remember, I don't know who it was, but I think they wanted to smoke some pot. We were talking about it, and all of a sudden I hear a whistle. I look straight up to the 4th floor of the American Hotel, and I see this envelope just floating down, floating down, floating down. It lands on the ground, we pick it up, and there's a joint inside. And I don't remember who I was with. I don't remember who sent that down after hearing our conversation just in the patio. But that was pretty awesome. For me, the American Hotel was the only place I saw people that were like me. One of the first people I knew was Don Jones. I was at the Clubhouse in the middle of the day for some reason, and I remember Don Jones taking me to his room at the American, trying on all this jewelry on me because he decided he was going to take me to an opening at Mocha that night. I had no idea who the hell he was. It was great. Mike Gonzalez was another fabulous character in the American Hotel. When I first got to know him, we'd have these long conversations. I swear they were like 2 or 3 hours. And he was a sweet, sweet, sweet guy. So he got in a fight Turns out the guy had a screwdriver, stabbed him, he winded up in the hospital, and I went and visited him, and he always says he got better because I went in the hospital and flashed him my boobs. Hopefully that had something to do with his recovery. You know, the American hotel rooms aren't big, they're small. And Kyle McCulloch would be cooking up these huge, amazing Vietnamese spring rolls, and he'd wrap them in these leaves, and he'd make the peanut sauce dip and everything. And he'd have a bucket, and he'd put the spring rolls in the bucket, and with a rope, go down and out the window. And then somebody would grab them and sell them in Al's bar. And I remember when Mom came to visit me for the first time in LA, I took her there for dinner. So I took her to a room in the American for dinner. And she's meeting everybody, and she was loving it. And we took her to Don Jones's room, and I remember he was wearing a robe at the time. And now at this point, she's going into every open door. You know, there was that one guy that was like a drug dealer or whatever that murdered a couple of people. And she's just like walking in there, like, hey, what's in there? And I remember having to drag her out of there. Other than that, she loved it. Just for the record, Joel Bloom has never, ever yelled at me. Not one single time. Joel was absolutely my favorite person downtown. It's like family, my father. I loved him so much. Joel did so much for the community, and he worked so hard to make it an arts district, and he was so committed to doing the really crappy, boring, behind-the-scenes work and meeting with people. And I remember being on the MTA board with him. Every week we'd go to this damn meeting. Those meetings were just dreary. I just sort of gave up, and whenever Joel said something, I just agreed with him. After he got sick, Joel lived with me for a couple of months. I took care of him, and he ordered from Chicago some deep dish pizza to be FedExed and flown overnight to us, which was pretty great. When he went into the hospital, there was a line to get in. I've never visited anyone in a hospital where there's a line in the room to get in. The nurses were all just amazed that so many people came to see him. And Joel, you know, is curmudgeonly and stubborn. He hung on. After they had dedicated Joel Bloom Square and made the street sign, the city council actually came in to the hospital and showed him. I don't know how much he could comprehend, but he got to actually see what he created, and that people honored him for that before he died. And that was pretty amazing because he had worked so hard to make that area happen, and he absolutely deserves to have that square named after him. Bedlam was run by Jim Fittipaldi and Sean Thine, and you would go there completely dressed to the nines. You had to have a password to get in. Everyone had their martini glasses, and they'd have a beautiful bar, and you could go play poker, you could play blackjack, you could play pool, and it was just retro speakeasy. Everyone was styling, and so it was a really kind of a cool contrast to like Al's Bar, the Clubhouse, which was down and dirty. That was when it was on Molino Street. Then at some point he got his own building with 3 stories. The bottom floor would have live models, and people would be coming to draw and paint the models, and there'd be like 100, 200 people painting. Then there was an upstairs floor, which would have a gallery space and a bar. And then there was also the rooftop where he would have events as well. It was more casual than getting really dressed up in the early Bedlam days, but it was just jam-packed, and it started becoming a little trendy, and that was like the secret fabulous place to go to. That's the first time I noticed a lot more people that didn't live downtown coming into downtown. People started coming from long distances to actually partake in this experience, but they definitely weren't part of the community, and that really made a difference. The culture changed, and you could really feel it. People were there to like look instead of be. Oh, let's look at these crazy artists. Aren't they interesting? And that makes a wall between people when they're just looking as opposed to participating. It's wonderful when people come into a community and participate. That's great. The more, the merrier there. But to just kind of go, oh, look at that, and look at that, and look at that. It was just different. It's straight out gentrification. Any community that is established by artists, they make it habitable. They make it a really cool destination place. Other people start to want what the artists have created, so they start moving in. They start taking from the artist as opposed to giving and contributing. Yeah, they just suck the life force out of it. The rents go up, artists can't afford to live there. So therefore, the people that come in to gentrify kind of get screwed too, because then the artists and the people that are actually making it a community have to leave, and then the gentrified people just have each other to look at, which can't be interesting at all. I cannot stand what's going on downtown. People have come in and destroyed it. It's jumped the shark. It's losing its character, which was what was valuable in the first place. It's losing its sense of community. It's losing its creativity. It's losing its uniqueness. They're actually putting shopping malls with gaps and stuff in there. Really? What's the point? There's those all over America. Why destroy this community right here by doing that? I don't get it. But that's also the natural way that cities work. Artists can never move into one area of the city and stay there forever because it's always going to change. And there's no way around that. My personal vision is that we're all going to buy motorhomes and then have moving art colony caravans all throughout the country. But that's my thing. I'm sort of looking to create downtown everywhere. A world where artists will never get priced out and always have an American hotel that can change place and location, but it's always there in spirit.
Cut.